네, 크롱님들 반갑습니다. 박종환 작가입니다. 네, 오늘 토크라운지 오랜만에 귀한 자리를 좀 마련해 봤습니다. 자, 오늘 토크라운지에는 좀 특별한 초대 손님을 모셨는데요. 최근에 이 지브리 스타일이라고 해서 AI에서 또 새로운 유행들이 많이 만들어졌습니다. 그러면서 AI에 대해서 또 새로운 관심들이 생겨나고 있는 상황인데요. 자, 이런 AI 산업에서 뭔가 새로운 영역들을 구축을 하고 있고, 특히나 IP와 관련해서 정말 특수한 어떤 목적형 블록체인을 지향하고 있는 프로젝트가 있습니다. 바로 스토리라고 하는 프로젝트인데요. 자, 오늘은 스토리 재단의 이사장이신 안드레아 무토니 이사장님을 모시고 이야기 한번 나눠보겠습니다. 반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you too. Great to be here. It's an honor to be on this show. I've heard a lot about it. Everyone I've spoken to here in Korea tells me you're the most influential person in crypto.
네, 너무 감사합니다. 이렇게 또 이사장님께 이렇게 칭찬을 드리니까 너무 감사하고 너무 좋습니다. 자, 이사장님 제가 이력을 좀 한번 여쭤볼 텐데, 제가 이제 간단하게 소개를 해드리면은 아마존에서 근무를 하셨고요. 킨들과 알렉사를 성공시킨 주역이자 웹3와 블록체인 혁신을 이끄는 리더, 이렇게 시장에서는 많이 지칭을 하고 있습니다. 자, 그래서 오늘 이사장님과 함께 이 암호화폐의 현재 시장을, 현재 상황들을 좀 진단을 하고 스토리 프로토콜이 어떤 프로젝트인지, 그리고 향후 AI의 미래와 이 산업의 미래가 어떻게 될지에 대해서 한번 살펴보겠습니다. 자, 그러면 본격적으로 시작하기 전에 이사장님의 자기소개를 잠깐 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 간단하게 소개 부탁드리겠습니다.
I've heard you say my name, but again, my name is Andrea. I have a bit of a hybrid past in the sense that I am both an engineer as well as a product and business person, right? So I studied business and I've always done coding on the side. I've always developed software. And this mix of business and engineering has always been my passion. So that led me in a lot of different areas. So I started a company when I was in university where we were building software, but with software that was specifically aimed at media and arts. And as you know, media and arts has a lot to do with IP. And then after that company, which is still running today, I decided to try the biggest company in the world, which is Amazon, right? And I was working for Kindle books. I started my career at Amazon, basically working with publishers in Italy, actually, and then in all of Europe to bring their physical books to Kindle. And that also was a very important chapter of IP, intellectual property, right? Because all of these books, they were concerned about, hey, what happens to my IP if it becomes digital? And then after that, and I went to Amazon Alexa, right? And Amazon Alexa was this new thing, this new conversational AI, novelty. It didn't exist before. You could speak to a computer and it would speak back and do things for you. And concerns there also started around IP is like, okay, so, what can Alexa do for me? And a lot of my time there was spent educating developers on how to build applications for this conversational AI engine, which we call skills. And that's when I started to get into Web3, right? I built a website called thecoinperspective.com and I published it on a social media platform, and overnight it got hundreds of thousands of users. And that really made me go into the Web3 space and understand all these projects. And to be honest, I was quite skeptical about Web3. But, I was curious. I wanted to learn more. And one company reached out to me, which was Dapper Labs. And they had created CryptoKitties, they had created NBA Top Shot, right? Two products that kind of went into the mainstream. And so I was like, okay, I'm skeptical about Web3, but I want to learn more. And the best way to learn more about Web3 is to dive into it and work in Web3. So I quit Amazon and I went to work in Web3, started at Dapper Labs, and it was all about IP. Again, IP has been a constant thread in my career where, we were working with Disney, we were working with all the top sports leagues in the US. Obviously, we were building a blockchain as well. And so when Story came about and Story reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is perfect. The world needs this. And I'm sure we'll get into why over the course of this interview, but IP is such an old, archaic, slow thing that people see as something complex that they don't want to have to deal with. But it shouldn't be that way. It should be easy. It should be as uploading an image to Facebook or to Instagram. It should be that easy to protect your IP, to use and license someone else's IP, to monetize it. And that's exactly what we're building at Story. And that's kind of how I got here. And, the last 2 years have been really working with the developer community, trying to work with them and help them build applications on Story. And then most recently helping to kind of lead the foundation. So that's kind of a long-winded way to give you an overview of my past.
네, 이렇게 이사장님 이야기를 들어보니까 뭔가 이력 자체가 뭔가 스토리를 좀 향하고 있다라는 생각들을 하게 됐는데, 기본적으로 개발을 베이스로 처음에 이제 이 시장에 들어오셨고, 이후에 아마존에서 킨들을 통해서 뭔가 IP 관련된 것들을 접하고, 알렉사라고 하는 또 대화형 AI 시스템을 통해서 뭔가 이 AI에 대해서도 뭔가 접하는 그런 계기들이 있었고, 이후에는 데퍼랩스라고 하는 또 웹3 시장에서도 또 한번 경험을 해보신 이후에 스토리로 이제 최종적으로 이제 오게 되셨는데, 뭔가 이 과정들을 겪으시면서 어떤 시대의 변화들이나 이런 것들에 대해서도 뭔가 명확하게 좀 많이 체감을 하셨을 거라는 생각을 하게 되는데, 자, 그런 관점에서 봤을 때 이 스토리 프로토콜의 매력을 느꼈던 이유가 무엇이고, 스토리 프로토콜은 어떤 프로젝트인지 간단하게 소개 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, it really has been through a change of an era. The main one being AI, right? It really has, there's a before AI and an after AI. When I heard about Story, when I talked to SY, when I talked to Jason Zhao, the two co-founders, I, first of all, immediately understood the vision, which was, how do we modernize intellectual property? Bitcoin has made money into something that is liquid, that is easy to trade, that is, Ethereum has made money programmable. You can create smart contracts. We want to do the same thing for intellectual property. So Story is the world's IP blockchain. And our, let's say, broader vision is bringing every IP in a single shared state, in a single shared IP graph, so that it is easy to compose on top of it. It is easy to see how an IP is made up of, right? Because everything that we create is a result of inspiration of other IP, right? What I'm saying right now is coming after hundreds or thousands of conversations that I've had with different people, and much like if I create a piece of art, it takes inspiration from hundreds of different artists that I've seen throughout my life. If I remix something, or if I create a derivative version of my favorite music or my favorite IP, like an anime character, all of these are a result of an IP or a piece of creative work that was done that was done before. And what's missing today is really that link of attribution. Today, this is done very manually. You have to manually say, oh, okay, this is a result of this inspiration, right? But what if, now that we're going more and more towards an era of AI where everything is automatic, everything is done through prompts, everything is done through, asking a computer, what if all of this attribution and linking and connecting the dots of, how things are related, how things led to the creation of something else, could be automatically attributed and connected. That is the broader vision, which is as I said, like a comprehensive IP graph. The funny thing about Story is that it actually started as an IP franchise. So the original idea for Story was, how do we let's make a programmable IP franchise that everyone can extend and create together with, right? As the team started to build it, we realized, well, okay, but we need a a framework to help make this IP programmable and to help others license and remix this IP. And so from the franchise, we started to create the protocol, which we call the Proof of Creativity Protocol. The Proof of Creativity Protocol is basically the set of smart contracts that regulate IP registration, IP licensing, being able to connect an IP to a parent, being able to monetize and royalties, disputes, all of that is in the Proof of Creativity Protocol. And the plan was to deploy this protocol to existing chains, like Ethereum, and other L1s and L2s. But as soon as we started to do that, we're like, wait, if we deploy this protocol on different chains, all of that state is fragmented and divided across different chains. And if someone wants to compose two IPs that are on two different chains, it's not possible, right? We would need to create a bridge, we would need to create some sort of higher order aggregation layer. And we're like, okay, so we need to build an L2. And so Story for a while was an L2. And we deployed the protocol and we were 1 week away from launching the L2. And we realized that as soon as IP became complex, so had more than 4 or 8 different parents. For example, let's say a piece of music. It has the composer, has the artist, could have multiple artists, has maybe different musicians that contributed different pieces of the music. IP can bubble quickly in terms of how many are involved in creating something. And with the L2, one of the great limitations was that we had no control on how to scale it because it always had to roll up into the L1, right? So we didn't really control the full stack. And we were limited by how many parents an IP could have. So we decided, okay, this vision is too big to be an L2 where we have to kind of fit things in order for them to fit into a roll-up. And so we decided to go full stack. We built the L1. We enshrined a lot of the protocol in the L1 directly. So all of the IP-related transactions are super efficient and super fast. And the important thing is we have full flexibility to continue to enhance all of the stack to make it perfect for IP, right? So things like graph relational databases versus regular databases. Things like controlling how the L1 governance token could potentially help validate IP. Things like, maybe having different types of nodes. For example, one node entirely dedicated to validating IP versus one node dedicated to consensus and execution. So these are all areas where we have full flexibility now that we have full control of the stack.
네, 이사장님 얘기를 들어보면은 역시 이 IP라고 하는 게 우리가 생각하는 것보다 훨씬 더 저변이 넓고 그리고 정의하기도 굉장히 까다로운 분야라는 것을 확인할 수 있었는데요. 그러다 보니까 이 스토리 같은 경우도 최초의 계획에서 계속해서 이 시장의 다양한 부분들, 어떤 변화들을 갖다 받아들이는 과정에서 여러 가지 어떤 발전들, 지금의 어떤 이 완전한 상태까지로 이제 오게 됐는데요. 자, 그러면 우리가 좀 이런 질문들을 한번 해볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. 아무래도 우리 이사장님이 또 데퍼랩스에 계셨기 때문에 이 스토리 프로토콜이 IP를 토큰화한다는 점에서 NFT와는 어떤 차별점이 있는지 궁금합니다.
Really, an NFT, for those viewing who don't really, who may not know, exactly what an NFT is all it is a pointer to say this thing, whether it's an image, a video, a house, anything, is unique in some way, right? Because if a token is fungible, it can be interchanged. I can send you 5 Bitcoin and you can send me 5 Bitcoin and they can be different. They're just numbers, right? My 5 is exactly the same to your 5. But if I make this cup an NFT, right? This cup is different from your cup. Not because it's a different type of cup, but because this specific cup is different, right? And so really an NFT represents uniqueness. It represents something that is not the same as anything else, right? But it doesn't really do anything for the IP. Aside from being a proof that this thing exists, an NFT is just really a placeholder. It's a bookmark. It's here, this thing exists and it's unique. So what Story does beyond the NFT is it actually has, for those of you who are technical and are watching, but I'll try to keep it high level as well. The way that IP is registered on Story is also through an NFT, but so much more around it, right? The NFT is just, again, is just the placeholder, the non-fungible token that represents what is being registered. Attached to it is a whole IP account. And this IP account has all of the brains of the actual protocol, right? So things like the IP metadata, things like the royalties, things like the license terms. You as the IP owner can attach multiple sets of license terms however you want, any parameters that you want. All of that is programmable and on-chain through the proof of creativity protocol that we talked about earlier. So you can set whether the IP can have commercial use. You can set whether, what type of revenue share you want, whether it costs money to mint a license or whether minting a license is free, whether you want this to be open for anyone to use. You can have different types of licenses for different uses. So you can have a commercial license if you want to use it for commercial purposes. You can have a non-commercial license, and all of that is around the NFT, right? But it's built on it so you have the index, you have the bookmark, but everything around it is the actual brains, right? And then I can get into more detail, but I'll keep it high level. So just to summarize, an NFT really doesn't represent anything beyond that something exists. To make it something that is, for example, an IP, you need to have IP-related metadata. You need to have things like that regulate things like royalties, license terms, everything that is actually used when wanting to use an IP. And that's what Story does. It's the NFT is just a small part of it.
네, 아무래도 이렇게 지식재산권이라고 하는 게 여러 가지 또 이미지나 음악이라든지 우리가 알고 있는 어떤 예술 분야와 굉장히 관계가 있고 그 외에도 다양한 분야들을 이렇게 두루 아우르다 보니까 많은 분들이 NFT와의 어떤 관계성이나 뭐 좀 비슷하지 않을까 이런 생각을 하실 수도 있는데 이 사장님 말씀을 들어보면은 그 구조라든지 모든 것들이 많은 차이들이 있고 무엇보다도 NFT는 아주 작은 부분에 불과하다. 이 부분들을 확인할 수 있었습니다. 자, 최근에 우리가 또 주목할 만한 현상들이 있었는데 이 챗GPT에서 이 지브리 스타일로 나의 프로필 이미지를 바꾸는 그런 유행들이 많이 있었습니다. 저도 개인적으로 가족 사진을 바꿔봤는데 굉장히 좀 귀하게 잘 바뀌는 거를 볼 수 있었는데요. 자, 그렇게 이런 현상들이 나타나는 그 이면을 살펴보면은 정작 창작자들은 여기에 대해서 뭔가 배제된 것을 볼 수 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 이 AI가 가야 되는 길들이 좀 아직까지는 많이 남지 않았나 이런 이야기들도 나오고 있는데 지브리 스타일로 뭔가 변경하고 이렇게 어떤 저작권들을 이렇게 AI가 활용하는 방식에 대해서 이 사장님 어떻게 보고 계시는지 궁금합니다.
So if you will allow me, I will give a little bit of a preamble to this, and then I will answer your question. If we think about intellectual property, not many people know this, but the whole concept of intellectual property and especially copyright started with the printing press. Before the printing press, books used to be copied by hand, right? And that naturally limited how many books could be shared, right? You could only share a book if you took the time, the many days or weeks or months to copy it painstakingly. With the printing press, books were now be able to be printed thousands at a time, right? And so suddenly you could have this proliferation of the same content across lots of different people. And there needed to be a way to protect it, to protect the intellectual property of the original author. And so that's how copyright law started, right? But that is so tiny compared to the amount of content creation that happens today. Even beyond books like radio, TV, everything that is, let's say, traditional mediums are very much top down, right? You have the TV channels that control all of the IP that is being shared on their channels. You have radio channels that control all of the music and all of the content that is being shared on their radio channels. That's not the case on the internet. The internet is peer-to-peer. Everyone can do whatever they want, basically, right? And so there's this exponential explosion of content being created. And the truth is that copyright law and IP has not caught up to it. It's just, it hasn't even gotten close, right? we're trying to apply very archaic old models to fit into this new concept of anyone can do anything. With AI, this exponential content creation got exponentially, factorially, even bigger, right? Because now we're not limited by what we can do or what we can draw or what we can say. We're limited by what we can think. Anything that we can think of, we can create, right? And so the reason I give you this context is we are in such a different place and reality right now compared to when copyright law and IP were initially created, right? And the manifestation of this new reality, that example that you gave of, Ghibli style images is a perfect example where these big AI models are trained on all of the internet, right? All of the internet is being used. All of human content, all of human knowledge is being used to train these models that act as central, basically, sources of truth of humanity. And then through those, we interact and we generate images, we generate advice, we generate content, we generate everything that we need. And so what really needs to change for this to happen is these AI models need to have attribution at the model level. Everything that is used to train models needs to be attributed and tracked and credited, right? It can't be a black box. If it remains a black box, we're never going to be able to give credit to the original creators when, someone creates a cute family photo in Ghibli style of their family. How does the original creator, for in this case Studio Ghibli, actually benefit, right? The model needs to be able to say, okay, you are a ChatGPT subscriber, you pay $20 a month, you used 1,000 prompts. One of those prompts generated a Ghibli style character. Okay, part of your subscription goes to crediting back whoever made that possible. That's the only fair way, the only scalable and sustainable way for AI to continue, because otherwise we're going to see a shift of people pro-AI and anti-AI. All of the creators will be like, I don't want AI to be trained on my content because I'm not going to get anything back, right? And so on Story, when you register your IP, you can actually opt in or out of AI training. So that's, that gives flexibility and optionality to the creators. And at Story, we're also partnering with some of the top AI companies, like, for example, Stability AI, so that all of the output that gets created through Stability can be registered on Story easily. And this is a first step, but it's an important first step in making sure that this attribution in AI is built from the ground up with the models.
어떻게 보면은 왜 저작권이라고 하는 개념들이 생겼는지, 그리고 인터넷과 AI가 계속해서 확장이 되면서 과거의 이 개념들이 왜 희석되어 가고 있는지, 이런 부분들까지 잘 설명을 주셨고요. 그리고 이 지브리라고 하는 어떻게 보면은 사회적 현상이라고 볼 수 있는 이 현상들이 어떻게 보면은 또 이런 새로운 변곡점을 만들 수 있는 중요한 포인트 중 하나가 될 수 있다라고도 말씀을 주셨습니다. 결국은 그런 가운데서 이런 문제들을 해결하기 위해서 스토리에서는 어떤 또 방향성을 가지고 가고 있는지, 이런 부분들까지 잘 설명을 주셨는데요. 그럼 이런 궁금증이 좀 들 수 있습니다. 앞서 우리가 이야기를 할 때 이 스토리는 목적형 블록체인이다, 이렇게 말씀을 주셨고, IP에 특화된 블록체인인데, 아무래도 이렇게 스토리가 먼저 이 IP에 대한 분야들을 이렇게 시장에 많이 어떻게 보면 끌어내는 어떤 작용들을 했는데, 이후에 이런 스토리와 비슷한 프로젝트들이 좀 많이 생겨나고 있을 것 같다는 생각을 하게 되는데, 현재 어떻게 좀 비슷한 프로젝트들 시장에 좀 회자되고 있는 것들이 있을까요?
Funnily enough, not much. Because all attempts that I've seen so far are not really understanding the core problem with IP. The core problem and unlock and need of the industry with IP is not so much registering and protecting IP. Because anytime you create something, especially for creative work, you have implied copyright, right? Anything that you create, if you write something, that's yours and you have copyright over it. What's difficult at times is to prove that you created it and when you created it. But you know, to be able to defend it, that's different. But like you have copyright built in. So registering something is definitely important, but it's only, you know, kind of like the first step. And all the attempts that I've seen so far outside of Story have been very weak attempts at trying to either help register IP or license things very manually behind the hood, right? So one example that I won't name, you can license your NFTs, but all they're doing is they're just taking the contract code and uploading it to the blockchain in English, right? In written format, which is like, okay, but it's like, so what, right? What Story does that's very different from everyone else is not only is the whole network built for IP, but the actual IP is programmable. And what I mean by that is every single term that you set, every single license term that you set on your IP asset is an on-chain parameter that others can use to create logic around. Similar to how DeFi came about, because DeFi is basically writing code and programming around financial concepts, right? Through smart contracts. By having all of these license terms be programmable terms on chain, we can create DeFi for IP. We can write logic around different terms. We can write logic around whether an IP has been licensed or not, how many people have the licenses. All of these aspects are dynamic programmable concepts. And I think that's the biggest thing. If we are in a world now where content is being generated at, you know, petabytes per hour probably, right? Or even more. We can't rely on manual review of contracts. We can't rely on, manual negotiations or just registering IP. We need to be able to programmatically engage with it. We need to be able to programmatically license it. We need to be able to programmatically register it. And that's only possible on Story.
네, 이 IP라고 하는 분야가 앞서 우리가 계속해서 이야기를 하면서 우리 크롱님들도 많이 느끼셨겠지만 굉장히 광범위한 분야이면서 정의해야 될 문제들도 많은 굉장히 복잡한 시장이라고 볼 수 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 이사장님 말씀은 스토리를 제외하고는 이 정도의 어떤 구현을 해놓은 프로젝트는 없다라고 말씀을 주셨고 실질적으로 현재 시점에서 가장 유일무이하게 IP 분야에서 뭔가 성과들을 만들어가는 프로젝트다라고 볼 수가 있는데요. 자, 그럼 지금 시점에서 이제 약간 주제를 조금만 바꿔보겠습니다. 시장에 대한 얘기를 한번 나눠보고 싶은데요. 우리가 트럼프 대통령이 당선되고 나서 뭔가 시장이 굉장히 붐업이 될 것이다라는 기대감과 달리 지금은 시장이 좀 많이 좀 침체된 국면에 있는데 우리 이사장님께서는 지금 시장 상황 어떻게 보고 계신지 궁금합니다.
I feel like the crypto market is a bit like an ocean. You know, oceans have waves that go up, waves that go down, you have tides. But underneath the surface, you have like a coral reef that keeps growing slowly, right? Under the water, unfazed by what's happening on the surface. And I really believe that just to be very frank, I think a lot of crypto, unfortunately, is just riding the waves, right? It's like, just going up and down. It's speculation. There's very little substance, but I do think that there's a coral reef layer of crypto projects that are really, really all about substance, all about utility. And I think this is the narrative that we're starting to see more and more is like, okay, now that the casino's over, now that the meme coins are over, what's actually left, right? And for example, recently Grayscale, one of the top firms in research and also investments, published a report, the top 20 crypto, and Story was one of the top 20, right? And one thing that they called out is these are the 20 chains that we have identified for, utility-driven use cases, right? And IP is one of them. And I think that goes a long way in showing that you can have as much noise as you want, but if you focus on the signal, if you focus on actually solving real problems, sure, the markets will go up and down, but in the long term, very long term, markets tend to always go up, right? And especially for the types of companies and use cases, whether it's crypto or not, that focus on actually on substance and IP. I can't think of any area right now that has more substance than intellectual property. It is top of mind with AI. It is basically the current gold rush. And IP is the most valuable form of information. It's the most valuable form of data. It's the most valuable form of training data for AI. And so not only are we, I really believe Story is at the right place at the right time to solve one of the biggest problems that we have as a generation, which is how can human creative work, human creative content be sustainable in a world that is going to be more and more overrun by AI-generated content.
네, 어떻게 보면은 너무 멋있는 답변이셨는데요. 이렇게 바다라고 하는 표현, 결국은 바다에서는 계속해서 파도가 치면서 굉장히 높은 곳으로 막 변동성이 왔다 갔다 하는 국면들을 경험을 하게 되는데, 결국은 우리가 그런 가운데서 가장 중요하게 봐야 되는 거는 산호초처럼 뭔가 잔잔한 구간에 있지만 그럼에도 가장 본질적인 프로젝트를 선택해야 된다고 말씀을 주셨습니다. 자, 그런데 이렇게 말씀 주신 부분은요, 제가 평소에 우리 크롱님들께 말씀드리는 것과 상당히 일맥상통합니다. 사실은 우리가 가장 좋은 프로젝트를 선택할 때 가장 기준이 되는 거는 결국은 펀더멘털을 고려해야 되는데, 이 펀더멘털이라고 하는 게 사실은 조금 더 깊이 있게 생각을 해보면은 어떤 근본적인 문제를 해결할 것인가에 대한 부분들입니다. 그리고 이것들이 어떤 성과로 나오게 되는지를 말씀을 드리는 부분들인데, 아마 이사장님이 말씀 주신 부분들도 이런 맥락이지 않을까라고 생각을 하고 있고요. 또 하나 이 소식도 제가 전해드린 적이 있는데, 그레이스케일이 2025년 2분기에 주목해야 되는 코인 20개를 정했는데 톱 20에서 신규로 3가지 코인이 들어갔는데, 그 중에 하나가 이번에 이 스토리가 포함이 된 겁니다. AI 분야에서 유틸리티 관련해서 AI 분야에서 선정이 됐기 때문에 이런 가장 큰 규모의, 그리고 가장 이 시장에서 영향력 있는 이 자산운용사가 선택을 했다는 부분들도 한번 고려를 해봐야 되는 지점이 아닐까, 그렇게 생각을 합니다. 자, 좋은 답변 너무 감사드립니다. 자, 그러면 1부 마지막 질문을 좀 드려볼 텐데요. 그 전에 하나만 좀 먼저 소개를 좀 드리겠습니다. 자, 스토리 관련해가지고 퍼퓰러스 리서치에서 자료를 만들어 놓은 게 있습니다. 리서치 자료인데 궁금하신 분들은 제가 댓글로 고정 댓글 달아드릴 테니까요. 한번 읽어보시면은 이 IP에 대한 부분들부터 해서 스토리가 어떤 것들을 정의하려고 하는지, 그리고 기술적인 분야까지 정말 상세하게 기록이 되어 있습니다. 그래서 관심 있으신 크롱님들은 확인해 주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 1부 마지막 질문 한번 드려보겠습니다. 자, 우리 이사장님이 AI에 대해서 가장 좀 중요하게 말씀을 주셨습니다. 그래서 아마 AI를 가장 중요한 산업군으로 꼽지 않으실까 생각이 드는데요. AI를 포함해서 현재 시점에서 가장 주목하고 계신 산업군이나 테마를 한 3가지 정도 뽑아주시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
So I think definitely AI, but I do think that AI is a little different in the sense that I don't think, like, in the last 2 years, we were in a, should we integrate AI or not, right? Type of decision. I think as of this year, people are slowly realizing that it's not a matter of yes or no AI. It's like everything, every project, every company, whether Web 2, Web 3, will use AI, right? It's not a feature. It's just another tool that everyone uses for different reasons, right? So I do think AI will be kind of cross industry and cross trend, it'll basically permeate everything. So for that reason alone, for sure, AI is number one. I think also, I know that we've been talking about it up until now, but I do think that one trend that we haven't really seen yet, because we're kind of the first to introduce it, is intellectual property. I think people are slowly waking up and saying, wait, hold on a second, this is intellectual property. Like when there was the craze of Studio Ghibli, a lot of tweets, a lot of comments, a lot of internet reaction was, what about their IP, right? So I think we are really defining a new industry category. You know, there used to be DeFi, there used to be identity, there used to be wallet abstraction, and IP is now a new vertical, and it's, you know, kind of a lot thanks to what Story has done so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing other companies, other projects kind of like also building in the space. Like, we don't want to be alone. We want to, you know, work with different projects, and competition is always good, right? Competition is always healthy. It helps stimulate change. It helps, you know, share different types of interpretations of problems and their potential solutions. So I welcome as much competition as possible, and we're obviously going to continue to drive this industry forward. And if I had to pick a third area, actually, I'll give you two more, since IP and AI were easy ones. I'll give you two more. I think one of them, in my opinion, is identity. Because, and I have a funny story about this, but I think identity is a very interesting one. And then the second one is DeFi. DeFi because it's not so much because it's like new, you know, it's been around for a while now, but because I think we're starting to see the institutionalization of DeFi. DeFi is starting to move from crypto degens to banks, right? So that's one. And on the identity, actually, I'm starting to realize more and more how a lot of Web 2 companies and governments are slowly discovering Web 3 concepts that have been invented already. So for example, I'm based in Italy, right? The Italian government has an identity system that is decentralized. Believe it or not, it has a decentralized identity system. So if I want to log in to a government portal, I can choose different identity providers, and they will all verify my information in their own way and basically certify and attest that I am me. And so when I go to log into a government portal, I have like 20 options of different identity providers. I can register with any of the ones I want, and I can log in with them. So this is, you know, like federated identity, decentralized identity, all of these concepts that crypto has been working on for years. It's something that, you know, real use cases, real governments are actually also discovering as being very much needed, because we need a way to, especially now where we're going to have more and more artificial people and agents, it's going to be very important to verify who is who. Are you you, or are you a copy of you, right? And so I definitely think identity is going to be an important factor. So to summarize, I would say AI, IP for sure, identity, and DeFi.
네, 저희 또 우리 계속 이야기했던 맥락대로 AI가 가장 중요하다고 말씀을 주셨고, 다음으로는 IP를 또 별도의 분야로서 가장 중요하다고 말씀을 하고 계십니다. 자, 그리고 그 외에 두 가지를 추가로 말씀을 주셨는데, 신원인증 분야와 디파이 분야가 굉장히 중요하게 부각될 것이다, 이렇게 말씀을 주셨습니다. 자, 1부를 여기서 마무리를 해볼 텐데요. 2부에서는 이야기들을 조금 더 깊이 있게 들어가서 암호화폐 산업의 심층 분석과 미래 전망에 대해서 한번 다뤄보도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.